If you watch any of my videos, you might remember this. This is a Kielder brushless motor drill, and it seems to be brand new, but it wouldn't work, and it took me some time to work out that it hadn't been assembled properly in the factory, and I eventually got it all assembled okay and it worked. And the only reason that I could get it working and testing it was because I managed to borrow a battery that would fit this so that I could test it. And that's what brings me to now. I just bought this Kielder 1/2-inch impact gun, battery, charger. So now I've got 2 batteries, I've got a charger, I've already got the drill, so I just need to get all of this lot cleaned up and working. Now this does work, just. You can see it's trying to work, but it's not quite as simple as that, because if you look, there's a bolt there holding this whole head on, and there's a screw missing there, and a screw missing there, and a screw missing there. It's got a few screws missing. And when I got it, obviously those screws were missing, batteries were not charged, didn't know if the charger would work. Put a battery on the charger, charged the battery. The only thing that occurred that was odd was that if one battery, you can see all I get is empty and low light up, and the high button doesn't light up. And the other battery, now that I've charged it, might not be very clear on the video, but I actually get empty, low and high all light up. As far as I can tell, this battery has charged up okay, so it's possible, I'm guessing, for this high thing not to be working. So it's possible that the battery is working okay. I don't know until I use this, you know, in anger, as it were. I've cleaned the charger, I've cleaned that battery, and I've cleaned that battery, because obviously the whole point of this video is getting this bit back to suitable condition. And there is a slight problem with that. I cannot find a bolt like that one anywhere. It screws into the plastic, that part of the plastic housing, and I can't find any bolts like that at all anywhere. So I'm going to have to make something that will fit for now, and just hope that at some point in the future I can perhaps find original style bolts, because I just can't find them. It's bizarre, but I cannot find that style bolt suitable for screwing into a plastic housing. I'll take out the one bolt we have got just to show you what we're looking at. If I can get that one bolt out, get this out of the way gently, I don't want it all falling apart right this minute. So that's the one bolt that we've got, and you can see it's a Torx head. It's 4mm thread. Now I've found this, and it's more or less the same, but it's a little bit fatter. But the thread is very, very similar. It's just the actual screw part is slightly fatter, and of course you can see it's a little bit longer. But the other problem it's got is that it's got this shoulder on it, and of course the head is no good. But the shoulder is going to get in the way, because if you look at that there, you can see that the heads are about the same size, but the shoulder is a problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in the lathe and take that shoulder off. That's the screw. Get that in there. It's quite difficult to grip because you're trying to grip those outside threads and they're very coarse, but let's see how that goes. Yeah, that's spinning quite true. Right, that's taken that off. Yeah, it feels okay. I'll just give it a tidy with a file. There you are, we've just got the size of the head now, and it's obviously a Phillips at that end. Right, we'll just put that existing bolt back in, so that's back in. Now because I don't know how well these are going to screw in, and you can see I've now made 3, that one in there, and because I'm not sure how well they're going to screw in, I'm just going to use a screwdriver rather than a powered screwdriver. Now that feels like that's going in okay. Bit tight, but it's going in. Yeah, that's locked in okay. I found some tiny little spring washers, so I've put those on there. So let's try that one. I'm trying literally finger tight to start off with. Yeah, that feels like that's going in. Yeah, that's on there. Now you can see that's a little bit thicker than that, so I probably could take that down a fraction and make it more like that, but really you can see that they look different anyway, so I'm not sure it's going to matter too much. I'll put that one in there. Yeah, that one's going in. That one's a bit tighter than the others, but it's going in okay. Right, that's fully in. So now at least the whole thing is properly held together. Now it obviously doesn't matter, I'm going to take the whole thing apart so that I can have a good look at it, because that's the whole point of restoring it, to make sure it's good. But if anybody remembers that drill, that was a real problem, because it seemed that once something like this was apart, assembling it back together again was some sort of trick that was almost beyond me or anybody else. But we did get there eventually. So what I will be doing is taking these back out again, just so that we can take the whole thing apart. So although I've just screwed these in, at least now we know we've got those. There's the little spring washer, so we've got those, and those will be ready to go when we need them, and they will fit. Whereas of course originally we only had one. So this is at least 100% of the parts. And this one I'll just whiz out with that. Now if I had another one of these I would be tempted to make it 4 of those, but I don't actually have another one of those, so I've just got to have that strange mix at the moment. Right, now this presumably will come out. There's the hammer part that gets bashed. Actually, if that's I wonder if that's a bearing or a bush, but it feels in very good condition, so that feels absolutely fine. It's going to want a good clean. This, that's your sort of impact mechanism. That's, you know, big and beefy and heavy, so that's the bit that's sort of doing the work. It's spinning and then it's hitting, so it's, you know, bash, bash, bash. These are the bits that are doing the bashing. They're not worn, so with a bit of luck that'll be okay. So that all seems okay, so that's going to sit in there. You can see it's soon beginning to get into a mess, and it looks like the rest of this comes out when you split the case. Well, this part, it doesn't really need to come off as such, at least I don't think it does, but I'm going to take it off just to get it out of the way. Oh, crikey, that is tight. Oh, doesn't want to know. Put it on the highest setting. There we go. I may even leave that bit off because I can't see me ever using that bit. Right, and that brings us round to here. Now I've got a feeling these are a smaller size. Yeah, they are. So all of these are a smaller size. So what are these? T10 perhaps? Yep, they're 10s. Let's put this down on the lower setting again. Let's try 4, that's normally good enough. That one's out. That one's out. Oh, they are very thin. So what's that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Quite a lot then. Let's hope they're all the same size because I'm about to tip them all out. Oh no, look. So was that one? Oh, so it looks like this one in the corner here, unless it was that one. Oh dear, where did this come out of? We've got one that's longer than the others. Oh well, it either came out of there or it came out of there. Let's have a look. I honestly don't know. Would it have come out of there? Let's try doing this finger tight, because we should feel if it's going to get too tight. No, it's gone in there easily. Look at that, finger tight. So, oh, I can't get it back out. So I think there's a fair chance the longer one came out of there. Well, who would have thought that there would be one longer than the others? But there you go. So we'll say longer one at the back. Yep, they're all out, so that's all of those. So those can go over there. Let's get this out of the way. Right, now does this, oh, that lifts off like that, does it? Oh, you can see that too, you look, big capacitor stuck inside like that. So the control circuitry for the motor, well, you've got your battery here, that's all the control circuit, that's all the control circuitry for that, because that's probably a three-phase motor running from some sort of firing order that comes out of here, and then there's our trigger which is telling this to start firing, and then it fires sort of sequentially so that fires this thing and causes it to turn round. So there are no brushes in the motor. Right, now let's have a look. We've probably got to lift that up so that can come out. Looks like we're going to be doing a bit of cleaning, doesn't it? All this lot, that's going to lift up out of there. And that lifts up out of there. And then we can put that there. So we've got these two bits that are going to need a good clean. We've got that, which is also going to need a good clean. And then, does this come off? No, I'm not too sure how we're going to clean this bit. Because if I can get away with it, I'm not going to disturb this any more than I have to. Because that feels absolutely fine. That bearing, it's sounding okay and it feels okay. So I think we'll probably give that a clean, but other than that, looks like this gear ring lifts out. Yeah, and I wonder if there's some screws in there to allow you to take this whole covering off and clean it, so we might do that as well. But one thing that's going to need a clean is these parts. So I think we're going to clean those first and then some of this stuff. Right, before we get to trying to just give this a clean, obviously what we want is the actual grease out of here, because that's not just sort of clean. I mean, if you put that in something to clean it when it's got heavy grease on it, the chances are you won't get the grease off. But if you can clean the worst of the grease off before you start using a cleaning agent, you've got a much better chance of getting it clean. So that's what we'll do. Right, so that's not too bad in there. That's most of the grease out of there. And then we'll do the same with this half. You can see a fair bit of grease coming off of there. But I mean, all things considered, it's actually quite clean inside. I mean, obviously it's bound to be a little bit greasy. It could not be. Right, let's put that there. Let's see if a little bit of alcohol will help. A little brush. Because obviously whatever we clean out, it can just soak into the rag underneath it. But I find that this makes far less mess than trying to just do the whole thing in a bowl. Not a huge improvement, but there you go. And we'll do the same. This side seemed to come up a lot cleaner on its own. And we'll do the same thing on this side. See if that'll help get some out. But you can see that some of the grease is like ingrained into the plastic. Right, now what I'm going to do next is I'll take these parts in and this bit, and I will wash them in soapy water in the sink. Hope my wife doesn't see me. This one looks like a hot washer, so it's nice and hard for everything to run on. These are hard, but they're very thin, so I think all these are shims. And I guess in an ideal world, if you took this apart and it was worn, you could put different size shims in, but of course I can't do that because all I've got is these two. And that's what it looks like on the inside, and it looks pretty much unworn. I mean, I can't guarantee that, but it looks fairly unworn. There's some grease and a proper bearing. I don't know if you can see that in there, but there is actually a proper roller bearing in there. I was thinking I might see a bronze bush, so that's even better. Alright, let's get this in here and get the worst of it out. Yeah. As I've said before, these things are much easier to clean if you can get the worst of the goo out. Now, I could sit this in a great big vat of cleaning fluid or petrol or something, but I don't actually like the smell of all these things, so I try to use the absolute bare minimum. But you can see that's coming up pretty good. If I don't put any chemicals in there, then I won't affect that bearing, and that bearing should be fine. I don't want to take that bearing out if I don't have to, because it's probably a push fit, and it seems perfectly okay. Not sure what I'm going to do about this outer coating. I think it's plastic coated, and I don't have the ability to do that. I could clean it and paint it, I suppose. So, but I think by the way it's flaking off, it's probably plastic coated. Right, I'm going to spend a few more minutes cleaning this off, but you get the idea. You can see a lot of this is sort of at the point of flaking off. Some's more difficult to move than others, but there's quite a lot where it's just at the, oh look, there's a great big chunk there, you see. So you would have to take this off if you wanted it to look any better, because you can see it's just falling off. In places where it's stuck tight, then obviously it's stuck tight, but a lot of places it's just peeling off. Now, I don't really want to run a sander around this because you'll be chewing into everything, so I may just see if I can go round and scrape, you see, look, some of this off, and then go from there as to what to do next, because I don't really see the point of sanding this, but we'll see. But obviously I won't waste your time looking at that. I'll just bring you back if I get it a bit cleaner. Right, just to give you an idea of how it's going, I'll just show you that if I go across there you can see it pinging off. And I'm just scraping. So it's almost like scraping after you've put paint remover on something, except I haven't put paint remover on it. That's what it looks like now. That's most of it scraped off, and as you can see, I don't know if a sandblaster would have taken this off in seconds, because this has taken about half an hour to clean, but as I haven't got a sandblaster it doesn't really matter. What I'm going to do now is rub it with a wire brush and see what that does to the finish. Right, there it is, freshly wire brushed. Sun's shining on it a bit brightly. I'm going to try to spray it with this stuff, which is just clear spray paint. And simply wrap the pan in some spray paint. I've no idea if this will work or won't work, but that's what we've done. It looks quite shiny at the moment, but whether it will stay looking shiny once it dries is anybody's guess, so we'll find out later. Right, there's often not much point in taking these apart because there's not much in them, but basically this whole contraption is locked together because there's a spring there and there are two ball bearings in there, and they are what hold it together. And so if you squash the spring, and you can see it doesn't take a huge amount of effort, I'm turning it with my fingers, I haven't even got a socket on the end, but if you keep squashing the spring, and I might eventually have to put something on the end, but once you've squashed the spring a bit, you should be able to get the ball bearing out. There it is there. Now you've got to get it squashed enough for the ball bearing to come out, and so far it's almost squashed enough, but not quite. So I think we need a little bit more, and I can't manage it with my fingers, and it doesn't actually look like it wants to go any further than squashed than that, which is odd because it should come out now. Come on. Right, this one's quite unusual in the sense that if you don't have this in exactly the right spot, you can't get the ball bearing out. The other one came out the other side okay, but this one will not come out this side. It's just, this bit is just offset very slightly. I don't think it's deliberate, I think it's just accidentally pulled more to one side than the other, but it makes it virtually impossible to get that out until you've got it in exactly the right spot. And you can see that isn't it. It almost is. Oh, there it goes. So it's a bit bizarre, that one. Right, now those two ball bearings are out, we can just take the tension off. This is just a spacer, so I'm not pressing on it, but you can see again, you see it's not incredibly tight. Right, there we are, that's come loose. There's my spacer. I want to be careful because this should be loaded with ball bearings inside. So get that out of the way. Alright, I think we're okay there. So we should be able to lift that out of the middle. There's our groove that holds the ball bearing, one each side. That's like that. There's our spring. You can see in there, there's all our ball bearings. And let's give that a bit of a clean, but let's have a look. I mean, they all look fine, but I guess as now we've got this far, we might as well take them out and give them a clean, mightn't we? Well, I don't know what I've used this for, but I just found a pot with some methylating spirits in it, so I can tip them out straight into that. Well, they're nice and greasy. Oh, I think one went AWOL then, as long as it hasn't come off the bench anywhere. Where'd it go? Oh, maybe they all fell in. There they are in the bottom there. It's funny, the methylated spirits doesn't really work on the grease. It sort of turns it into like clots instead of simply dissolving it. Right, that bit's all clean and tidy. It's got some really heavy duty grease in it, I think. And I'm just giving these ball bearings a bit of a wipe with it. But it's reluctant to actually get the grease to come off. I think it's sort of some sort of heavy duty, almost like old-fashioned chassis grease or water pump grease or something. It feels like it's much heavier duty grease than you would normally find. It's because it's incredibly sticky. Look, the tiny bit that's on here, it really sticks to the bearings. Let's see if this makes any difference. That's a bit of alcohol. Oh, that seems to make a bit of a difference. So obviously methanol doesn't work, but this does. That's cleaned them up lovely. Give them a little bit more. And they all look perfect, which is good. Right, to avoid losing any, let's put those back in there then. So there's 2, see how many we got? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 and 4 there, so 24. I don't think I lost any, so presumably that is 24. So they got a bit of a gap between them though. Everything's magnetic, so let's try and find a wooden stick to poke them with. Yeah, so they get a bit of a gap between them. They had plenty of room for one more, I think. But I'm fairly sure I haven't managed to lose one. But I will have a double check just in case. But it's funny because whatever that grease is, this is all really sticky, and you know, the grease that I normally use, it doesn't actually leave things feeling sticky. I mean, they feel greasy, but this stuff actually feels sticky. Right. Oh, we've got a frost washer on the end of there, so that must go down on top of those bearings. Yep, so that must have been running around on the top of them. So we need to find some suitable grease. And then there's our spring. The spring is pretty clean already. That's because obviously I'd given this bit of a clean beforehand, because I much prefer this method of cleaning things because you can keep an eye on what's going on. If you just clean things by hand. But I know some people, they like to dump all this lot in a pot of something, don't they? They dump it in a pot of petrol or diesel or something, and but I prefer doing it like that. Right, so we need to find some grease. I wonder if I've got some heavy duty grease somewhere so I can make it more like it was. If I had to guess, I would say the grease that was in there, in that bearing, was similar to this sort of stuff, but this is more like sort of waterproof grease for you know, boat bearings and water pumps and stuff. But this smells like that grease smell, and it's sticky like that grease was. I don't really understand it, but it says it's suitable for bearings, so I'm going to use some of this. This is more like tar than grease, but I'm assuming that once it gets warm and is spread about, it will be okay. But it's going to be pretty difficult to get in there. Ugh. maybe this isn't such a wise idea after all. But like I say, if you go by the smell of it though, this grease actually smells like the grease that was in there, so maybe I can just get some on there and push everything down in place and call it done. It's very strange, but it wasn't like any ordinary grease. Try and get a bit more in there, because anyone who knows this grease will know what I'm talking about. It's got a sort of distinctive smell to it. I guess if you don't want the grease to sort of like go walkabout and stay more or less in one place, then a really heavy grease would work, but I don't know. How do I make sure the bearings are all down and flat? With difficulty would seem to be the answer to that one. They're all trying to stick to this. Let's try me a bit of wood. No, that doesn't fare any better. No, I can't quite see how this can work. It's so thick, the bearings are piling up on top of each other. Get down there. I just need to encourage this to be at the bottom where it's supposed to be. It's all risen up the sides. Right, let's try dropping that down on there and see if that will press down into place. Right, well that's down in place, which means our spring should fit on top with no trouble at all. I'll put a tiny bit of grease on the end of the spring. Just a little bit there. And then this can sit through there, and then we've just got to squash it enough to get these back in. Right, that's it all squeezed down in place again, and that one that's just fallen straight in. Oh, well, that one's just fallen straight in. Look at that, perfect. And I think what we'll do is we'll put a little bit of this, again, this sort of heavy grease in there, because with a bit of luck, with this heavy grease in there, it's not going to spread everywhere. It's going to be inclined to stay where we put it, because it is so heavy. I don't think it's going to stop the ball bearing from moving around or anything. Right. So again, everything's finger tight, so we should be able to wind that back. And there we are. We're all back in business. So bearings repacked in there, new grease, they're back in there, new grease, so we should be good to go on that part. I'm just using ordinary multi-purpose grease for these ones because it's nice and squidgy. So you can see it's soft and squidgy. I like to get a bit in where I think the contact surfaces are likely to be. So it's actually in there. Because it's easy to fit this stuff, put grease all over it, but not actually have any grease where the grease is required. So I like to try and make sure that there's actually grease where the parts are going to meet. But that doesn't mean I'm doing it properly. That's just my best guess at what I'm doing. But you see, because all those bits have got grease all over them now, with a little bit of luck, these pins don't need a ton of grease on them because they're going into something that's already covered in grease. Well, they would be if I could get it to line up. Never mind, get that one there. That one there. Oh. That one there. Get that out of the way. Right, now all we've got to do is find the right spot for them. Oh, that's well too far in. That's looks about it. Oh, yep, that's gone. Right, now where's this one got to go? Sticks out quite a bit further than that, doesn't it? So, somewhere around about there. Oh, there he goes. So that's gone in. So this one's in too far, so we need to pull that one out a bit. Somewhere around about there, perhaps. Yep, there we go. Then I think we'll put just a tiny bit more grease in if we can in that middle bit, because that's where the drive from the motor is going to sit in, and that'll save greasing it later. And you can see, put a little bit of grease on there. If we turn these and put a grease on them as we turn them, then we know they've got plenty of grease, and we turn these. I don't want to go mad. I can't remember how this went, but I'm fairly sure that this must have gone on here, because we would have needed something to hold those 3 pins in, so I'm fairly sure that that must have gone there. Right, I don't want to get a ton of chemicals all over the motor, so what I'm doing is I'm just giving it a dry brush with a toothbrush just to get some of this, I don't know what it is, dust? Rust? I don't know what it is, but it's for the most part it's coming off. But like I say, I'm trying to avoid using anything liquidy. Over here it's a bit greasy, so I'm not going to brush that because I'll just end up with a greasy mess on that side of it. So I'm just concentrating on the motor at the moment. I don't like to disturb these things any more than you absolutely have to, because it's amazing how often you disturb some of this electronics and cause a problem that you didn't have. So I suppose you could say that's my coward's way out of looking at things, but I've forgotten the number of times I've taken something completely apart only to find that it worked before, and now some fault has developed as a result of taking it apart. So I try and avoid that if I can. You can really feel the magnets in there, but I must buy myself one of those little blow guns that you can blow air with. I've got a compressor in my other workshop, and it's a pain going down there and turning it all on and building pressure and whatever. And it's so powerful, of course, that if you don't hang on tight, you'll have blown the motor across the room. But like I say again, I'm going to go through this. It will take me a little bit of time, so I won't waste your time by showing you an hour of me cleaning this. But I'm going to go through and clean this off as best I can. And for anyone wondering why I haven't changed the bearing, that bearing looks and feels as good as new. It's just perfect. I mean, it's just, I can't feel a thing. No noise, no play, nothing. So I don't think we're going to have any problems with that bearing. So there's our ring, that can go back in there. Come on, drop down in there. There we go. Well, certainly made to good tolerances. But yeah, that bearing's fine. And there might be one right at the back of there, but I can't actually see if it's a bearing or without taking it apart. So what I might do is just put a little drop of oil in the end there, in the hope of getting a bit of oil into the bearing. So that's the motor, for the most part, cleaned. I'm just going to do the same with the switch, and again mostly with it dry, so that I'm not introducing any silly chemicals that might be a problem. And most of the dirt that comes off it seems to be sort of like dust, so I think probably that sort of clean is as good as it needs to get. I don't think it needs some fantastically deep clean, and if it ever does we'll worry about it then. And this piece at this end seems to have been so encapsulated by the plastic that here that the body has kept that bit clean, so that's clean anyway. Funny though, I've never seen a capacitor sticking off of anything like that before, but learn something new every day. I scrubbed these for a good 30 minutes or more, and you can see that it's come up fairly clean, but not really perfect, but not bad for what it is. Clean that bit as well, but it is what it is. The sort of grease has somehow got ingrained in the plastic, and I could sand it slightly, I think, but it just isn't worth it. I think it is okay as it is. So that's really the last piece of the puddle, so I think we can put some of this back together. Right, first we've got to try and lift all this lot into there. And that bit, it sort of latches in when it's in the right spot, so somewhere in there. Oh, there it goes. And then this has to sit in there like that, so that that can go down. And then this bit sort of slots into there. And I'm not sure exactly how this bit goes. I'll worry about that in a moment. Like I say, that seems to sit there like that. That works alright when it's there. Up to there, that'd be the other way. So that all seems to be okay. Just need to get these wires these ones here are reluctant to go down where they need to go. There's the green one underneath. Ah, there it goes. There's the back one. Right, so they've gone back down where they need to go. Let's see how the lid fits on, because if the other half goes on okay, then we know we're in the right spot, and then of course if it doesn't go on okay, we know we're not in the right spot. Yep, fits perfect. Right, now does this, it's all sticky, yeah, that's going to fit in there like that, isn't it? So that's okay, so we can probably leave those bits together. I think what I'll do is I'll just put a couple of screws in here, not all of them. If we have two at the front, two at the back, Now we came up with the idea of this long one at the back here, we hope. Well, it's nearly all of them anyway, isn't it? And then that one in there. And then I think we'll just do these finger tight to start with. Oh, there we go. Just that's finger tight. Oh, no, I can't do that one finger tight, it's getting too tight already. There we go, that one's finger tight. Right, I think those are okay, so if we buzz those in a little bit tighter, I'll leave that on number 2 I've used before. You can see that's not much more than finger tight because they're almost done up. Right. Now I'm just going to put a bit of multi-purpose grease on this inner ring, or outer ring I suppose you would call it. I'm putting it on the inside of it. The inside of the outer ring, how's that? A little bit, and then a little bit of grease on this centre drive pin, but of course that probably is fine because there's a fair bit of grease on this bit already, and then this bit has just got to fit on there. Oh, there it goes in, and then with a bit of luck that's in as tight as it needs to go, so that's in. Right, for this part and where these connect, I'm going to use molybdenum disulfide grease for CV joints. I suspect it's the same stuff that they use whenever they want hammer action inside these, because you get a sort of hammer action inside CV joints when CV joints are in use in a car. So I'm going to use that for that bit. It's horrible and black, as you can see. Okay. Most of that will squash out, I should think, and then we're going to want some on these hammer parts. Because this is where the two are going to bang together. And then you can see that that's the hammer bit, so these are the parts that bang together. And obviously don't really need any extra grease on these, I'm just showing you where they are sort of thing. So they are there, and so they sit on there like that, and that's where they would bang. So that grease would help protect that banging action. Then we've got a selection of washers, and you can see some grease has come through onto that washer already, so we'll just put a little bit of grease on that one. It's no big deal, it's just going to pick up a bit more from here as it goes round. And then I'll put a tiny bit more on there. It doesn't need to be a huge amount. I should imagine that will spread out between the washers. And I think I said it before, I think these are just like shims to make sure that there's enough clearance inside. So that would go like that, and that one would go on top of there. Bit of grease oozing out there, have a bit more on there. Right, then that brings us to the nose piece. Now the nose piece has got a roller bearing inside it, which I'm just going to put a little bit of grease in there, and again I've run my hands around this and I can't get any feeling of roughness or anything from the bearing. I think the bearing is absolutely perfect. And at the front here there's an oil seal, and all it's got to do is keep in quite thick gooey grease, so I don't think that's going to pose a problem. Now I just want to get a bit of extra grease on here. I suspect it doesn't need it, but if I get a bit of extra grease on here, it's easier than trying to put a little bit of grease in there, just so that there's some extra grease to get flung around inside should it need it. So like that. This has got a cut out so it will only go one way, so it just sits there. So that goes on there like that, and then it stops because we're hitting the grease seal, so we need to get past that. Oh, there we are, we're on. And that would have pushed out some of the grease. There's our original bolt, which went in one of these holes. I forget which one it went in. That doesn't really matter too much, I don't think. Put that in there. Just again do these finger tight. That one can go there. Have that one in there. That one in there. Oh, I forgot. This is the only one that's Torx, isn't it? These are now Phillips because I can't find a Torx head bolt anywhere. I will keep looking out for Torx head bolts, but I've tried searching on eBay and on AliExpress and I can't find any that would fit, which seems a bit bizarre, but I mean I just can't find any. Right, that's tight. I'm not overdoing the tightness. As soon as they feel tight, that's it. That's tight. And that's just that one. We'll give that a quick go with this. That's it. That feels like everything's turning in there. Right, we've still got 3 of these to go in. 1, 2, 3. So that's now the last thing is this. I can't really make up my mind whether I want that in there or not, because I can't imagine that I'm ever going to want to clip this to anything. So I'm not sure it's actually performing any real function for me. What I might do is, let's see if that will come out, because obviously this whole thing came in a box. There we go. Now will that just sit in there out of the way? It's actually a bolt. There's a nut on the other side, much to my amazement. And I might just leave it like that. Yeah, that'll do. Right, in the box with this there was one odd socket, and it even says Kielder on it. Chrome molybdenum 19mm impact socket. So if I can find something that's 19mm, we could even try the original socket. Looks like it's meant for a wheel. There's our freshly charged up battery. Sounds perfectly happy. Socket. I just need to find something that takes 19mm and we can test it. Trailer wheel. Unfortunately it is 17. So 17. Might not be obvious, but that is coming off. That is coming off. That is done up. That is done up. So I would say everything is working really well. So there you have it. Maybe not as good as new, but not bad, all working fine, good. But there is a final benefit to this as well, because this came with 2 batteries. So now I've got a battery and a charger for this, which is something I worked on before. So now this is good to go with a battery. So it's a sort of double deal for me.